I don't usually show off my PC cases, but when I do, the finesse, baby. Room for activities, modularity. Strip it down all you want. Yeah. No problem with the heat either. Know what I mean? Looking for an intimate moment? The finesse is something sexy.
Hey guys, Zebra here with Canucks, and the launch of AMD's Fiji graphics core in the R9 Fury X marked an important point in the time for the graphics card market. The Fury X was a winner on many fronts and highlighted AMD's rising confidence, but ultimately in many games it performed just a few percentage points below the card that was designed to compete with the 980 Ti. To broaden the appeal of their new architecture, AMD is expanding the Fury lineup with an air-cooled model called the R9 Fury, placing it right in between the 980 Ti and 980 in price and performance metrics. At $550, it occupies a price slot Nvidia seems to miss out on. So the model we have here is the SAPPHIRE R9 Fury 4GB Tri-X OC, which uses a gigantic cooler to keep the temperatures of the Fiji core and its associated HBM memory modules under control. While the board partners for the Fury X were limited to the reference water cooling design, we'll see only custom coolers with the R9 Fury. Initially, the PCB will remain in the reference design. Specs-wise, the Fury is utilizing a slightly cut-down Fiji XT Pro core, now with 3584 stream processors versus the 4098 found on the Fury X, so expect a 10% performance difference between the two. Engine clock hits the 1000 MHz mark, which is 50 MHz lower than the Fury X, while the memory still runs at 500 MHz on the memory clock. Sapphire's overclocked model bumps things up a bit to 1040 MHz, but it doesn't touch the memory clocks. But that 4GB of high bandwidth memory is still set up on a massive 4096-bit bus, granting the GPU substantially more bandwidth than any current GDDR5 card. Meanwhile, the TDP is set to 275 watts. Priced at $550 for the stock card and $570 for Sapphire's overclocked version, the R9 Fury should make a pretty big splash in the market. However, we hope prices will remain below $600, even for custom designs, since any higher and the card certainly won't be as competitive. So what's so special about the Fiji core? In essence, it boils down to the memory design and the PCB layout. Video memory modules are now stacked on top of each other on GPU die itself, instead of surrounding the core on a conventional GPU. This allows for quicker communication, lower power, and a much more compact design. The lack of a closed-loop water cooler, though, means the R9 Fury doesn't see the full advantage of this PCB reduction for the end user. Our Sapphire Fury is 12 inches in length, a full 1.5 inches longer than the Nvidia cards it's designed to compete with. The PCB is still 7.5 inches, and consequently it'll be a cooler size that determines size compatibility of AMD's R9 Fury. Despite the enormous size, there's no denying the perfect fit of the Tri-X cooler on the Fury. It just looks great. The cooler has three 90mm dual ball bearing aerofoil fans with a total of 7 heat pipes spread throughout the dense aluminum heatsink, and it's directly attached to the solid copper plate. Under light or idle load, the fans don't kick in, so you get a perfectly silent card. Taking a look around, you can see the oversized cooler extending beyond the PCB that has a gorgeous aluminum backplate with a few color match strips which seamlessly transition onto the frame of the heatsink. The only potential issue is the 2.2 slot height, which may interfere with some more compact motherboards. For the I/O, you get 3 DisplayPort 1.2 and HDMI 1.4. Meanwhile, since the Fury uses reference PCB, it requires dual 8-pin power connectors. Above these is an 8 LED bar to indicate GPU load, while the colors of the LEDs can be changed with the accompanying DIP switches to red, blue, or turned off. So now let's jump onto the benchmarks. Starting with 1440p, the results are as expected based on the Fury's price. The average frame rate on the games across the board fit right in between the 980 and the 980 Ti, and we would consider this to be a win for AMD just because Nvidia's current selection doesn't span the price performance category. For 4K gaming, we're seeing similar results, but with the Fury separating itself with the 980 and approaching the 980 Ti. Many titles performed really well, but as well with the 1440p results. Some key games like GTA 5 and Battlefield 4 see the card struggling. It's also interesting to see such a slight performance dip when compared to the Fury X, but with a full $100 saved, the R9 Fury will be a popular card for sure. Thanks to the HBM, the lack of a water cooling pump, and other architectural power efficiencies, the Fury is not as power hungry as the Fury X. In addition, its power requirements put in right in line between the 980 and 980 Ti. Thanks to the excellent Tri-X cooler design, the card reaches a maximum of 75 degrees Celsius at load while maintaining a quiet acoustic performance. Those 3 fans and massive heatsink managed to do a proper job with total silent operation under light load. They even allowed for a bit of overclocking, and we were able to get the card to 11,007 MHz. So in conclusion, the R9 Fury is a needed card in the marketplace. It fits into a price point that isn't currently occupied by the competition, and it beats out the GTX 980 on all fronts and even comes closer to the GTX 980 Ti at times. However, we can't forget the overclocking potential of the competition, and that is when the R9 Fury loses its attraction for now. For those not in favor of water cooling unit and higher price point of the Fury X, the R9 Fury is an outstanding alternative with an excellent price to performance ratio. And that concludes our review of the SAPPHIRE Fury Tri-X. Leave your thoughts on this introduction with the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.